Hello everybody and welcome to today's workshop, Video Editing, Music and Emotions. Really happy to have everyone join us today. So yeah, welcome to the Creator Space, one of our final February workshops. Just put up some information. You can keep checking in our website, tbmcs.ca. You can look at how to access digital arts equipment through our library partners, and also stay tuned for some upcoming workshops and some new types of workshops that we'll be doing as well, with some interactive breakout rooms and things coming in March. So really excited about that as well. My name is Tom Strnad. I'm the lead digital artist of the Creator Space. And again, thanks everyone for joining us. So in terms of today's workshop, just want to start off and thank all of our partners in this project for helping us make this happen. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts. Then we have our library partners. We have the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. And as I mentioned, you can access the computers and digital arts equipment. So some of the stuff we'll be looking at today is more on the computer side, and these computers, iMac digital arts computers, are available at the Blue Mountains Public Library and at the Wasaga Beach Public Library, and soon at the Collingwood Public Library. So we're really excited to have that access to equipment. So stay tuned and check out the websites as things start to reopen again in our area for access to the libraries. So in terms of today's workshop, let's just have a quick overview and just kind of see what how this will proceed. So here it is. So we're going to look at the software just briefly, and again, you can go to our website and you can check out a lot of the information on past workshops and tutorials. So you can go right to our YouTube channel. So tons of previous workshops on Blackmagic, DaVinci Resolve, and video editing in general. We've done some workshops on sound design and sound editing. So this is kind of an extension of that, where we start to really look at some specific topics like music. So we will be using Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve in the demonstrations today. And it's similar to a lot of editing software out there. So if you're using other Elements software like Adobe Premiere, Avid Media Composer, it's the same type of concepts. They're very, very similar now. Next, we'll look at music and video, different methods of using music, and we'll look at some samples as we go along with that too. Then there's music genres and emotions. And how does that play? Like different genres can play with different types of emotional impacts. Selecting music and how that works. So we'll look at some of those stock music concepts or stock music sources that are out there. And then we'll look at auditioning and trying before you buy, music and story. And then we'll have some time for case studies and samples as well. So we'll be able to really look at a broad spectrum of everything as we go along. And we'll have time for Q&A. So as I mentioned, in the bottom corner, bottom right, you can see Ask a Question next to Call to Action on your browser. And generally on some smartphones and things you might not see it, but you can either write some questions in the chat room or directly ask in the Ask a Question. So really happy to be able to answer your questions at the end of the session. Okay, so here's the software we're using, Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but totally free, nonlinear editing software. You can go to the Blackmagic Design website, download it for free, and if you don't have a computer that you can use it on, again, you can go to our library partners and access the software on the iMacs there. We are using version 17. That's the latest. It's a beta version. Not that different from previous versions as far as what we're demoing today. So definitely check it out. That is available. And like I said, our YouTube channel has a bunch of videos on from loading it onto your computer all the way through all the editing steps to get you to where we are even today, talking about music. So music and video and film, different methods. So we're going to talk a little bit of theory around music and how it works. And music, just like sound, we've mentioned that before, how like with films, sound and picture are really a 50-50% blend. So I always like to look at that as that if you imagine any kind of film or video, whatever you're watching, if you turn the sound off, it might not be that impactful. So think of a horror film. It won't be that scary if you turn the sound off. So it's that 50-50 blend. We're so used to having film and video with sound that sometimes we can panic. Oh, where's the sound, right? So it really is an integral part of it. Then music is that one more layer where there's dialogue, but with film and video, because we're able to do editing, we have that ability to add that extra layer of information through music. So how can we use music? It's really important, and it's a real vital part of the video editing process. And here's some of the types that we can, how we can use music in different ways. So music can be used as a score. So if we think of it as background without words, it can be used as a soundtrack. So think of just songs, music with or without lyrics. So, you're putting, a song from an artist that's written, a folk song, you're putting that in there. Score, think of it more of instrumental. I don't want to say orchestral because it could be digital. So if you think of, like Trent Reznor's soundtracks and things, very digital process, David Fincher type things. Or we could have, score that's very orchestral and with a whole, 50-piece orchestra playing it. So then the soundtrack is really that music, like different music, styles, genres, and I mentioned with or without lyrics. That can be an option. Then we have the idea of diegetic. So this is the source type music. It's essentially part of the film's world. So that's a really cool part because those are, how do we add music into the film's world? So I'd like to mention here, score is not heard by the characters and subjects in the film. And then the soundtrack usually is not heard either. But diegetic music that's part of the film's world is something that characters and the subjects hear. So that's a really big difference. So, as if you think about that, when you have a score playing, and there's been some exceptions, like there's been comedies. I think Mel Brooks did this great scene in High Anxiety where it's kind of making fun of Hitchcock films. And there's a bus going by and you hear this score coming and there's this orchestra playing in the bus. So it becomes diegetic. But even though generally, if you think about this big orchestral music, the characters are not hearing it. So that's for us as the audience to hear. And it brings into that idea of melodrama. So melody with drama. So the melody leading the drama. So that orchestral, emotional, evoking type music. But the diegetic music are elements such as, when characters are hearing it in a party, it could be like a house party. We hear music playing, background music. We can hear it on the radio. We can hear it at a live concert. There's music. So it's part of the character's world. So the audience hears it, but the characters hear it and might even interact with it and say, oh, I hate this song. And they're interacting with it. Whereas the other stuff, if the music's is playing, if the scores is playing, they're not interacting with it. So it's kind of an afterthought where it's really part of the post-process world of the film and the music and how we use it. So we have a real powerful ability to change and enhance scenes and decide how we want them to be and what we want them to evoke emotionally and how do we want them to play with the story. So here's just a little bit more on the diegetic versus non-diegetic. And I thought this was, one of those really interesting things. I remember in film school when we, talked about this. This was a really cool topic, and I really want to share this because I think it's a neat way to think of, how you're putting music in the films and understanding the differences and making sure that it can make sense because you can push it to ways where maybe it doesn't make sense. So again, diegetic music, it's an essential part of a musical. So if you think about, the characters singing the songs, and they're singing along to songs played in the film or video. So think of like musicals like Mamma Mia, lots of music playing, that whole process is continual. So musicals, a lot of Disney films, a lot of characters singing along to music. Sound of Music, we just lost the great Christopher Plummer. Sound of Music, totally musically driven, right? All diegetic, all of that music, the characters sing, they hear, it's all part of the scenes. Sometimes there is some score in the film too, and that's really cool when you start to look at it. It's not all diegetic. Sometimes there's just orchestral pieces playing that the characters don't hear, and it's like transitions us from piece to piece. Also, it's a theoretically we have to start thinking about that. How much do characters hear in the musical? Are they just singing? Do they really hear a whole orchestra singing? How much is it enhanced, right? So we have to look at that suspension of disbelief and how much we believe that in a musical the characters are truly hearing, all the stuff, all the instrumentation and orchestra playing. So that's something to think about too. So the diegetic music is often part of scenes involving concerts, like live music, dances, if you think of like prom type scenes, films like that. Radio listening, very common source is putting up music on a radio in a car or listening to music on headphones for a character. And we might be part of that. And we can hear that diegetic music part of the scene. Then the non-diegetic music is really what the audience gets as their own perspective. And it's a very omniscient type of position where they're outside of the story. They get this extra enhancement of music that the characters don't get. And it tells them how to feel at times. And it can play with those feelings. And that's that melodrama idea where they can really, kind of feel more because of the music. And then the other cool thing is that diegetic music can transition to become non-diegetic. So if you think of a song on a radio or on headphones, then it transitions to being full volume for the audience. And then one note here too, the diegetic music also tends to be treated to sound like it's part of the film's scene or world, right? So oftentimes, we'll put we can put some sort of equalization on music so that it sounds like it's coming from a radio or coming from headsets, and there's some equalization that can be done. So think of that treatment as part of the music treatment as well, right? So the diegetic, non-diegetic. So really cool thing to think about. So think again, if if I have headphones on, I hear music coming through the headphones, and you hear it as an audience, and then it transitions to become outside of the headphones, but it's loud. So it's no longer limited to sounding like it's just coming from like the spill of my headphones, but it becomes loud and encompassing and then the whole thing. So it transitions out of the character's world or that story within the source of in the film, becomes that non-diegetic soundtrack or score. So there's a lot of films that will do that and play with that, and that's really a fun thing. There's been a lot of fun treatments of what does music or sound like underwater if we're going from underwater to above water and that transition. So there's been some interesting concepts of that. I've seen more of that kind of design stuff in films where it's playing with those kind of ideas. Okay, so let's move along here. So music genres and emotions. So different musical genres, and this is an extensive area we can get into. There's hundreds of genres if you think about it, and subgenres, and could be a multi-month conference just on music genres. So we want to just look at genre as a concept and not necessarily types of genres. So using genres can help also with the story and evoke certain emotions. So if you think of a slow folk song, that can create a sad emotional mood in the film. And a fast rock song can bring in high energy and speed and momentum. So we start to think of genres also have tempos and emotions based on could be the lyrics, the type of instrumentation. So is it really sad sounding, right? And we know what that means. Like it's very intuitive. If you feel sad listening to a piece of music, you're going to make the audience feel sad, right? If you feel happy and upbeat with a piece of music, that's going to translate to the audience as well, right? So really important. And then I made a note here, like a choral song with, a choir singing can be inspiring and provide hope. So another type of genre. And then there's also the idea that genres have associations and we can play with those or against those. So I have an example here. Think of a horror film, and if you have like a horror film and there's some nice happy old rock and roll, classic rock and rolls playing, and you hear it like in the cottage, and meanwhile there's this stalkers approaching, and it plays with those emotions where it seems like it's a happy scene, a happy moment, but there's horror happening. There's this terror, and ultimately some stalker murder is approaching. So instead of having that scary, moody scene, it's playing against the expectations of it being a score that's spooky and scary, and instead of having that kind of fun. I remember in the past, the X-Files series, they had a lot of play with that, and radio music playing, having like old rock and roll playing while this paranormal killers and bizarre things would be unfolding. So a real fun way to play with that as well. So, so I just made a note there. So like country folk song as a killer walks down the path. So think of those opposing emotions. So then, if you think of that, the kind of, what's the consistency in all of this? And if you think of what is the constant out of all the stuff we talked about. So music adds an emotional impact to a video. So that's something we have to be aware of. No matter what we do, by adding music, we add an emotional impact. So be aware, because we can add, putting the wrong piece of music can potentially ruin a story or a film. We could see that a lot of times. Sometimes it just like a song is so horribly wrong for a certain film or video, and it just doesn't work. So that's something important, that, what we choose can be really important to. We want to enhance the stories and work in that kind of realm. So let's look at some samples. I'm just going to switch over here and kind of look at what can be played with. So I have a short here that I'm going to play called "Home Sweet Home," and it plays a little bit with different music expectations, and it has some good samples of diegetic and non-diegetic. So I'm just going to kind of start and stop it and run us through it so we can kind of identify and look at what this means. So here we go.
Hi Mom, it's me. We're back from France, just landed. Everyone's doing great. Can't wait.
Okay, so far, and we might be lost a little bit in the translation here as I play it through, but there's this kind of bass thumping music. So it's diegetic. We hear like the phone call is playing with the answering machine, like hearing it off a phone, but there's this bass thumping. So the idea is that this music is playing in this house. And again, it might be lost a little bit in our live stream, but I just want to explain that's what's happening here.
To see you and Dad. Thanks so much for watching the house, by the way. I'm sure everything was fine, so we'll see you soon. Love you. Bye. Mom, it's not like you...
So the music continues playing that thumping. So you hear like boof, 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 boof. So it's that dance music thumping, like it's playing on the sound system and in this, big house in the background somewhere, and it's moving from there. So I'm just gonna fast forward here a little bit, and I'm just gonna get us to the characters are gonna wake up here. They're just kind of passed out from partying, and we're just gonna transition. Okay, so then we get into score. So using classical music, and it's there with the action of the vehicle approaching down the driveway, and also there's the element of having the cutting to the music a bit. So we talked a bit about this in previous workshops. So that's kind of cutting to music for even more emotional impact. So those strikes of like da 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 da, cutting to the image as that goes through each piece. Let's move on here.
They're back.
So still the music is thumping in the background. Again, I apologize if you can't totally hear that in the live stream, but it's just still playing like it's part of the house in the background, thumping, boof, 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 like the, party type of music. And here we go. Okay, so then we go back to the classical score music. We hear the kids laughing a little bit in the car, and then it comes back to the same song that was in diegetically shown, part of the house party, and now it's playing full blast or in full non-diegetic. So it's no longer part of the film's world. It's now part of our world as an audience to keep us going. And that music is driving the actions as they unfold. So now this older couple is going to be cleaning up. So really going back and forth, and being able to go from the the classical music, calm car driving, to this dance party theme that's full pumping through and adding that way. So very two emotional sides. So I think that's why I just wanted to choose this short film, because it gives that sense of, we got diegetic, and then we go into non-diegetic, classical music, dance, like electronic dance music, EDM, I guess is what it's called, pumping through as if it's for the audience, right? So the characters are technically still hearing it as diegetic, and it's just playing there on the speakers in the house, but we're hearing as the audience as a full, unfiltered version of it. So it becomes like soundtrack. So we have score of the classical piece or soundtrack, and this soundtrack of this EDM song as well. So it just keeps going from there. And you can see how, editorially things are switched around too, so that making things faster as, we see, the EDM music driving the people more and more, right? So that's a cool one there. So now let's look at something else. How can it play with emotions? So I'm just going to go to this other piece here, and this is just a military documentary about the Queen's York Rangers, and we're just going to play a little piece of this for just musical choices as well. So here we go. Okay, so that takes us through just the opening there. So again, the type of music, that kind of orchestral, epic, big drum hits to kind of go through things, and it's all encompassing. The decision there is where, music can totally drive and take that whole scene over, and it's how do you do that in terms of no other sound design. So we could have heard gunfire and things like that, but this is the idea here, is that it's totally totally taking over the scene as it unfolds. So instead of using sound effects and all that kind of sound design, the music is driving us and going through. Okay, so let's I'm just going to pull up another scene here. So here's a bit of a trailer for a film called King for a Day. Now this was an original piece of music that's called King for a Day, by the reggae band Too Nice, and we're just going to play through this a little bit, and this will give a whole different type of emotion. So we heard that kind of score, classical dance music, and here, let's give this a quick listen. Oops. It's exiting on me. Let's just do that one more time.
for a king, for a king, for a day.
All right, we are at Graceland, the home of the king.
You talk about the dream. Elvis lived it. I mean, he's the kid who came from nowhere.
He grew up in a shotgun shack. So one room shack, you open the front door, open the back door, you can shoot a shotgun straight through it.
Elvis met the Colonel. I think it was 1955.
The rest was history from there. They started playing this picked up R&B music and they just never stopped.
All these years later, all these people are still coming to Memphis. They're going to Collinwood.
And now what I'm going to do
What
is
is going on?
I'm just going to fast forward this here to like kind of the end montage.
A king for a king, for a king, for a day.
Because when I first started in this, I thought, oh, it's just Collingwood Elvis Festival. But there's pretty much almost every weekend, definitely.
Memphis is my Stanley Cup in a way.
King for a king, for a king, for a day.
So that's you know, how do you know, getting an original piece of music that's composed for the piece, and that's gonna let's just take that over into the next discussion here. So in terms of, you know, emotions and things, so, you know, how do you you know, trying things out. So definitely you can audition music, so try before you buy. So the stock music sources allow you to sample and explore and even download audition samples with word marks, right? So you want to be able to do that to make sure it can fit into your story and into the film and video. So I definitely you know, recommend trying the music out and audition it before finalizing it and licensing it and buying it off a stock song. Also, if you're working with an artist, a musician, same idea. You want to see how that works. Like get a kind of a demo sample maybe before it's finalized to make sure that, you know, it's working within the film, and you know, what does that exactly mean. So I'm just gonna take us to let's just have a look here. Just gonna Google one of the stock sources. I'll just show you guys what something that can be used. So I recommend there's a few sources. There's a thing called I'm just gonna pull this up here. So Audio Jungle. So this is one of the ones. So you can basically just, you know, try different music. You can go, you know, just under music, and you can search royalty-free music tracks. So I can just say emotional piano. And we'll be able to just play these and audition them. So yeah, definitely try, you know, auditioning before you buy. That I highly recommend that, to be able to do that. Now, selecting music. So as I showed here, you can get it from different stock libraries, and, you know, and then you purchase as you want them or need them. You can also license from musicians and artists. So that can be, you know, it can even be custom composed or written for the film, like I showed in the King for a Day. So, and oftentimes score, when you're listening to soundtrack to music for films, the score is written specifically for the scenes and follows even the tempo changes for the scene. So it's totally originally composed. So that's, you know, in the Oscars, we'll see that section where there's the original score, then there's like original music, original song. They have those song categories as well. And then here I just want to have a note. So in terms of music, there's always kind of the two elements. So there's like the actual, you know, master of the music. There's also something called publishing rights. So I just want to touch on that. Again, I'm not giving legal advice, but just something to be aware of, that the stock music, the idea is that you can purchase the music and it's for specific rights. So it might be like web use, broadcast use, that kind of idea. And then you pay for those specific rights. You can use it in your film or video. The music's not for you. You can't resell it. So it's just for use in synchronization. So those are those master use and sync rights is the idea. So the master use is who owns the master of the song, right? So that you're paying for that. And then you're paying for the sync use of the music to your film or video, which it comes down to those kind of publishing rights ideas. So it's always important to make sure that, you know, if your buddy's a musician, you want to, you know, have some sort of a contract, and you can find these online, and or just something simple that outlines that you're using that music in the film, Then the other thing that you can think about is it exclusive or non-exclusive, and that's a big part too. So, exclusivity is that it's just for that film, so that would be custom music that you're paying a lot more for. Non-exclusive means that anybody can buy that same song, right? As is the case with stock music. So I just had a note here, and it's something we want to really practice and encourage. And this is what we say is that, as an artist, you must license the music that you use in a film or video. So again, look at copyright laws, and you should follow all of these using that idea of paying fairly and getting the music licensed for your artistic practice and music use. You can also create your own music. So that's another option. If you're musically talented, you can write your own score and music, and that's great too. John Carpenter did that a lot for a lot of Halloween, like horror films and things that he's done in the past. A lot of his own music he wrote. So that's a great, asset if you can do it that way. So remember to have everything licensed, because, once you put stuff in screenings, film festivals, commercial exploitation, even putting things on YouTube, you have to make sure that your music is licensed. Otherwise it can be flagged, and then you will end up, for example, on YouTube, you'll end up with ads. Some other sites and sources might totally remove you or take your video down because of copyright infringement. So just a quick word on that, dealing with that and making sure we can, access things properly. Okay, selecting music. Okay, and then just have a couple more things here to talk about, and then we're going to get into some more demos right in the software itself. So music and story. So, I recommend highly that music should be part of the story and help enhance the story. And, this can be through complementing the scene, both emotionally and with the story, or by creating a juxtaposition to create different opposing emotional moods. So, think about that. What, is it complementary? Is it going to be opposing? What are you trying to say with the music? And then sometimes I make a note here, sometimes a specific type of song is even written in the script and is integral to the story. So it could be like characters listening to a Beethoven piece, and that's written in the script. So you want to actually use that if that's part of it. And they could even talk about that. Oh, I really like Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Okay, well, you should have that playing if they're listening to it. Like, oh, I love listening to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. It wouldn't make sense if you're playing, a country folk song while the characters talk about that. So that's that kind of integral part where it's written into the story. So, adding music can enhance the scene or story. And then here I make a big note. At the end of the day, we're talking about music in today's workshop. But finally, sometimes using no music at all could be the correct decision. So think of that less is more with storytelling. So it could be tempting to have, wall-to-wall music in the entire film. But always ask yourself, is it necessary, and how does that help the story? Maybe it needs a break or a pause, right? So having a lot of music, having no music at times can be very impactful. So think about most films. They generally don't have music throughout the whole film, and that's, again, to be impactful at certain scenes. Maybe drama between two characters can be better suited without music at that moment. So, how do we play with those different elements? Okay, so let me just switch over here. We have a couple more. Let me get right into the DaVinci Resolve software here. So I'm just going to switch over here. Okay, so here we go. So here, I just have some, I'm just going to get a new timeline. Okay, and I'm just going to put a little piece of this short film here. So this is just the dialogue only.
I don't know if it's the painting or the lighting or the quiet.
Okay, and then what I'm going to look at is, how do we let's put in some music and play around with some music samples. So I'm just going to import some music. Sorry, just give me 1 sec here. Oh, I think I have to put another drive in. Give me 1 second here and get the right project going. Okay. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. I just had the wrong drive in there. There ends up being lots of different drives. And okay, so we're going to just look at a couple pieces. So we're just going to put a few songs in and just kind of see the, the differences between, what these can do. So I'm just going to bring it down pretty quiet, just like minus 15 decibels or so.
Hello.
And just bring it down a little bit further. And we're going to make this dialogue a little bit louder.
Isn't this a beautiful piece? It's so calming.
Yes, it is. I feel like I'm being drawn into it.
It's almost as if you're entering into a dream.
Ah, dreams. They can be so comforting, can't they?
Yes, they can.
Okay, so that's just an emotional, inspirational music piece. So that's kind of there, right? And that's driving it one way in that kind of a scene. So now let's look at, let's bring in another piece just to kind of, see what another type of song would be. So, we'll put in kind of this, this other type of song. The same idea. I'm just going to bring it in there. Okay, so this is called this is kind of like a kind of a rock, California rock, desert rock song.
Hello.
Isn't this a beautiful piece? It's so calming.
Yes, it is. I feel like I'm being...
Right, so, and, I'm not too worried about necessarily the drama here of like what's being said, but what a different mood. Like all of a sudden they're kind of, is this part of the gallery, and is this, the kind of hip hanging out here?
Isn't this a beautiful piece? It's so calming.
Right, so again, it creates a very, very different type of mood. So now let's try again with something else. I'm just going to go through some of the stock songs here. Use this pizzicato one. It's the same idea. Oops. Got the wrong piece in here. There we go.
Isn't this a beautiful...
Hello.
Isn't this a beautiful piece? It's so calming.
Yes, it is. I feel like I'm being drawn into it.
Right, so all of a sudden now we've got, we're getting into this kind of comedic aspect. And how does it work with So we had that orchestral piece, then we had this kind of, California rock piece, kind of hip, like hanging out in the gallery. Now there's this mystery song, so it looks like something's gonna maybe happen.
It's almost as if you're entering into a dream.
Ah, dreams.
So it's definitely playing against the emotions in the story. So it's making it kind of lighthearted and, going from there. So let's try one more thing here. And we're going to see, I'm going to put this calm ambient music. It's really fun to just, and this would be the idea of, being able to audition some of the stock music to really see what fits, because you can see how different it can really be.
Hello.
So this is called Serenity, so I'm going to put a little bit louder.
Isn't this a beautiful piece? It's so calming.
Yes, it is. I feel like I'm being drawn into it.
It's almost as if you're entering into a dream.
Ah, dreams. They can be so comforting, can't they?
Right, and you can see how fitting that can be, right? That serenity. It's like, okay, dreams, right? So now we're kind of on the right track, probably, of what our story intention is. But again, the music can create the whole mood of a film. So you can make something that's comedic into being more serious. It can be quirky, it can be offbeat, and it can be like this, where it's it's kind of still light, but inspirational in terms of that kind of dream world. So let's again find some more music. So these are just some stock songs that that I have. Let's try. I don't know what epic cinematic is, but it sounds very epic. Okay, so let's try this.
Hello.
Isn't this a beautiful piece? It's so calming.
Just going to lower that down a little bit. So I'm just taking these levels and just lowering it down here.
Yes, it is. I feel like I'm being drawn into it.
It's almost as if you're entering into a dream.
Ah, dreams. They can be so comforting, can't they?
Yes, they can.
So you can see that's still working kind of like the last one, that Serenity song. And versus the Pizzicato Misterioso. Very, very different type of music. And what that's doing. So here, let me just look at some more here. Here's some of the mournful orchestral background. It sounds like it's going to be very emotional already. So let's give that a whirl. Oops, got the wrong one in there. Okay, so I'm just lowering this down to about, I always audition at about -18 to -20 decibels, just to give me a bass.
Hello.
Isn't this a beautiful piece? It's so calming.
Yes, it is. I feel like I'm being drawn into it.
It's almost as if you're entering into a dream.
Ah, dreams. They can be so comforting, can't they?
Yes, they can. Sometimes. Are you here for the art or the dreams?
A bit of both, I think.
So that's a really nice piece. I'm starting to get really happy you know, for that kind of match. That seems to be kind of neat. It's called mournful orchestral background, but it's, you know, kind of working in line with it. So again, you know, I think that's enhancing the story. It's intriguing. You know, if the story, you know, I'm not trying to get them that there's something kind of mysterious or there's kind of a robbery might happen or something. That Mysterioso one is kind of neat because it's quirky, and again, if the story was going to that way, I'd want it like that. So again, you have to make sure the music's leading you as you go towards those story directions. And let's just try something even more, and then I'll talk a bit about where some of these are, where some of these are from. Okay, and then here's like a totally different type of song.
Hello.
Isn't this a beautiful piece? It's so calming.
Yes, it is. I feel like I'm being drawn into it.
It's almost as if you're entering into a dream.
So there's a really good example, I think, of, you know, the wrong type of song. So I'm just going to solo that with the S there. You know, so that music seems like it, you know, it's very specific kind of, you know, where it would work. I don't think it's working well with that scene, but, you know, again, in a montage or something, it could work, right? So, yeah, so let's start getting into some Q&A here. I see a few questions up. Yeah, so definitely we're going to do some more workshops on some of the basics, but I do encourage you to go to our website, tbmcs.ca. You know, and then from there you can go right to our online video channels. So we have a YouTube channel. Go right there, and under using Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve, and there's also a video editing playlist. We have multiple workshops, probably about a dozen, that take you right from the beginning, loading in the software through to, you know, the first edits and so on. We will have some more workshops coming in March where we're going to do some kind of interactive components as well. So definitely stay tuned for those. So that might be of interest. Here's a question. Do some movie theaters allow each member of the audience to customize their music or self-customization? Very interesting question. Very interesting concept. You know, that would be a very complex system to do, but, you know, as technological advancements happen, that can be the case. So just to get into that a little bit on, you know, when we see films on the international scope, sometimes, you know, if you watch like a French film or series, there's a really good one right now. I recommend Lupin, a French series on Netflix, kind of a action detective-ish type of burglary heist type series, really well done. And you know, that's always a big question for international. So we might see different music replaced in some films, because what happens is there's something, you know, usually it's in stems. So we talked about this before in sound edit and design, but there's dialogue, music, and effects. So most films, TV series, and even shorts, and I encourage everyone to do that too, is that you create a stem that's just the dialogue, like what we're working on right now in DaVinci Resolve is just dialogue with this. So I have no music with that scene. So that's key, so I can put different songs in it to audition. So there's that. Then there could just be a stem of music. And then there's a stem of effects. So that would be like, you know, car tires, doors, dogs barking, the ambiance of streets and parks and house interiors. But the music could be its own track. So sometimes music's changed. So there could be changes in versioning. That could be also based on licensing. So maybe a particular song is licensed for French use only, and it won't come into North America or Canada use. So that's exceptions that can happen that way. So there's sometimes is customization that we're not even aware of, that you can watch the same film in different countries and get different songs sometimes. And that could also just be because of a language thing of, if there's a lyric based song, they might try to get an English version of the song. There can be exceptions like that, but that's, again, it's quite a rare idea of having customized music. Okay, so can you suggest some apps we can use for editing or workshop where we can do it together? Yes, so definitely, like I said, we're gonna have some workshops coming up. We're gonna do some breakout rooms in March. So we're gonna talk about editing, have some videos uploaded first for viewing. Then we'll get together to talk and review some of the concepts. So there'll be some more kind of one-on-one training opportunities coming up. So definitely stay tuned for that. We're gonna have that announcement by the end of the month. We'll start posting those. Now, in terms of the workshops, or in terms of what apps, so what I'm using here is Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. It's totally free. So, but in terms of apps, I would use, if you're using an iOS like system, like an iPad or an iPhone, definitely check out iMovie. It's a really, really intuitive, great way, and it's a free app, so there's no cost. So I'm always trying to recommend what's free and no extra cost. GoPro has an app too, Quick Stories, where you can technically edit other video in, but iMovie's very robust. And again, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can check out, we have a whole course on iMovie production with an iPad. So how to do a whole film using an iPad all the way through to finishing it. So you can check that out. Some of the music sources, so what we've been using, I've been using stuff from audiojungle.net. It seems to be, it's one of the more popular ones. I'll just put that URL here so you can check it out, audiojungle.net. There's iStock. There's probably hundreds and hundreds of stock music sources out there. The key is to find ones that have music that you like, that can work for the film. Sometimes specific songs are only available from specific stock sites. And then price points. Some have subscription offers where you can pay monthly and have, unlimited or some limited type of downloads and access to music. So that could be really useful if you need a lot of music constantly. You can do a subscription. Lots and lots of things there. So if you Google, if you do a search for stock music, you'll find a lot of options. Audio Jungle's what I was just using there today to source. I use that a lot. It's quite versatile, and they have a really good range of music. So I recommend that one, but definitely there's iStock, PremiumBeat.com, and Shutterstock. iStock has the music libraries as well, and then there's some other stock sources. So SoundIdeas.com has music as well that you can purchase as well. And some are limited uses. Some require different levels of use, so if it goes theatrical and things like that. Okay, so here's a question. Out of 10, how important do you think music is in comparison to video, sound effects, transitions, and color grading? So really great question. I think it's a great way to kind of summarize what we've been talking about here is, really at the end of the day, you can see how I could change the scene. So again, music can be totally, 10 out of 10 important if it's really helping enhance the story. It can also detract. So the last piece I put in there, I think, was taking away from the story. So in that case, it becomes 0 out of 10 because it's the wrong music, right? So, and then finally, sometimes the ability to not use music, is really an important thing. So that less is more. Sometimes you don't need music, pumping in the background the whole time. It doesn't have to be music driven. So think of those pauses just as much as this was a workshop on music. Think about the gaps of music can be just as effective in storytelling. So really want everyone to think of it that way. So perfect. I think just looking if there's any other questions here coming up at all, and I think that's most of the Q&A. You can always reach me. I'll put my email, so you can email me tom@tbmcs.ca if you have some questions. I'd be happy. Let us know what you think of the workshops as well. If you have some ideas, we'd love to hear thoughts and ideas of what worked well, what didn't work well. Love the feedback. You can rewatch this right here on Crowdcast, and we will also have this uploaded on our YouTube channel. And I'm going to post the YouTube channel as well. So just stay tuned. I'll put that in the chat and load it in there, so you can go right to it directly. And that's it. So again, thanks again for joining us. And I hope that was an informative start on music. We hope to do more workshops on music and music production all the way through, and kind of the mixed media aspects too, through like audio, podcasting, design, music. So lots more music stuff coming up, music and sound design. So stay tuned for those as well. So once again, want to thank all of our partners in making this happen. So we had Canada Council for the Arts and all our library partners: Blue Mountains Public Library, Collinwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great rest of the day. Take care.